I'm delighted to welcome this morning Neil Fellows from the Total Wellness Club down there in Draycott, Somerset. Welcome, Neil.
Thanks, Elaine. Good to be here.
So the internet, we've just been discussing off camera, the internet's a bit hit and miss. So let's hope some better reception. It's wonderful living in the country, but also you have the downsides of not having the high-speed broadband and everything.
Very true. You never quite know what you're going to get, Elaine, especially with so many people working from home these days.
Absolutely. So, Total Wellness Club, Neil, please explain to the listeners what it is.
Yeah, so we started Total Wellness Club a few years ago, and we started it really because what we're seeing really is I think the world is shifting from a time of sort of inspiration. There is just so much out there these days online. There's no shortage of it. If you when we were younger, Elaine, you were very restricted in terms of the information that you could get. But that's not the case anymore. So what it creates is a new for everybody, because we don't know what we can trust and we don't know what's true and what's real. So we created Total Wellness Club really in the health and wellness and personal development space so that people could really understand what actually really does work for the health and well-being. So as we move from information and inspiration, we're moving into trust and transparency. So Total Wellness Club is a rate and review platform where a wellness practitioner, their clients will leave reviews about them so that other people can understand the experience that they could expect if they were to go along and use that person. And we're also expanding out from the rate and review. I interview a lot of wellness experts on our YouTube channel, and we also review products as well ourselves. I don't profess to be a health expert. I'm not a nutritionist or personal trainer. What I am is a health explorer, and I've worked in the sort of health and wellness and personal development space now for about 20 years. And had the good fortune to work with some amazing people. So I've had some insights into what can be done for health and also for a strong mindset as well. So I've been very fortunate, and it just with that background, we started Total Wellness Club, and then as I say, being able to do these interviews and review products and services has been fantastic. It really is helping other people, opening their minds to what they can do rather than just accepting their lot report, getting lost in the information that's available today on the internet.
As you say, it's very confusing, isn't it? Because you read an article that says do this and another article says no, don't do that, and some person will say, well, it worked for me, and someone says, well, it was terrible for me. And it's the appreciation that everybody's different, and there is no one size fits all when it comes to health and well-being. Our bodies are different, our minds are different, our experiences, our cultures are different.
Totally agree. I mean, as you know, with what you do with DISC, you've got different personality types, and we're all going to behave in different ways according to those personalities, which creates different life experience. And then, we have our own approaches to handling those experiences, and they obviously create different things going on within our body. All our bodies are different. If you take sort of like DNA tests and things like that, you understand that my body's different to even my children's. So they've got sort of slight variations or different variations of DNA, of course. So yeah, and like you say, we're all very unique, we're all very different, and I think that this is something that we really do need to be aware of from this point onwards. Because a lot of the medical profession really is built on sort of like Newtonian kind of physics, as in one size fits all. And medications, as we know, will have different reactions on different people, the same as doing one kind of exercise will work for somebody, or a different diet will work for somebody, but won't necessarily work for somebody else.
Absolutely. Many years ago, I used to run cardiovascular health clinics. And part of the intake questionnaire for clients would be what sort of exercise they do. And again, linking back to the DISC behavioural profiling that I specialise in, some people will throw themselves around a gym and it will be the perfect thing for them to do. Other people, sitting, reading a book and having a gentle walk with the dog is the right thing to do. So depending upon our personality style, our metabolic rate, our previous medical history, our environment, there's so much to take into account, which is why I've introduced testing now into my regime when I help people, because there is no such one size fits all. But also I'm glad to be reminded of your platform, Neil, because somebody asked me where can they put a testimonial for me, and I always forget to ask people to do testimonials, and one came unexpectedly the other day on my group, and I must ask people to put a review. So where can people find the Total Wellness Club?
Yeah, so Total Wellness Club is actually totalwellness.club. That's where you can find us. If you've got people like yourself, if you've got people listening who are actually professionals in health and wellness, they should go and get themselves a listing on Total Wellness Club, and then they can invite their clients to leave reviews on the website as well, because it's a very powerful thing, because reviews, we're all expecting to see reviews these days. It's the way of the world. Amazon started them in 1995. They knew back in those days that people needed proof online because they didn't trust online before they bought. So, they followed on very quickly. TripAdvisor do the same thing. You've then got Uber and Airbnb and all of these other websites that all do exactly the same kind of thing. And of course, then we've got Total Wellness Club in the health and wellness space. And so it's amazing for people to be able to read other people's reviews, because the thing is that these days as well, because we have to be careful with advertising standards when we use testimonials. So a testimonial, if you're using a testimonial as a professional, you have to be very careful with that because of the laws. But when a review is left, because it's user-generated content, because it's live, it's not edited, it's raw, and it's live streamed, that it bypasses the advertising standards laws, because therefore a customer can say something about what you've done for them that you couldn't say yourself in a testimonial that came from them. So it gives people kind of like a more rounded and full idea of the experience that they can get when they work with a wellness professional. So I think that's really helpful. It's a big plus. And those reviews, we have them on our website, but we can also live stream them to a wellness professional's website as well, so that people who arrive on their websites can also then see the reviews being live streamed in there as well. And because we're a third party, we're independent as well. I think that stands for a lot as well, because we're not. Whereas if someone was collecting reviews or testimonials on their own website, that's one thing. But where you've got a third party collecting those reviews, I think it stands out a little bit more. It gives it a little bit more credibility for somebody who's looking. So it's a real key thing, I think, as we move forward. Absolutely, the independence is very very good.
So how did you get to create this? Because you've mentioned about wellness and personal development and so on, kind of hand in hand. And when we first met hundreds of years ago, you weren't doing this. You were doing stuff in the personal development world and IT and all kinds of fancy whizzy things. So what led you to develop the Total Wellness Club?
Well, I think that I had my own health challenges. I was once very close to being 21 stone. So I was obese. I had back pain at that time as well. My back would just sort of like lock up, and that would happen probably every 4 to 6 weeks. And then I wouldn't be able to move very much for a couple of weeks. And then gradually I would get back into life, only for it to happen all over again. I also had knee problems. I had an undiagnosed food allergy as well. And went along to see the doctor, as you do. The doctor said, well, literally, the back is wear and tear. The knee problem is similar, but if you lose a little bit of weight, that might help. They didn't really know what was wrong with my nose, but they were prepared to send me for tests and potentially operate on that. But what I actually found was that I did lose weight, and I myself to around about sort of 12 and a half stone now. I do occasionally, this time going into the summer, I will lose another sort of 7 to 14 pounds as I start to get out more and exercise. I went along to see a chiropractor, bearing in mind the doctor said it was wear and tear and it would only get worse, and keep taking painkillers when it does. I went along and saw a chiropractor, and the chiropractor just asked me a very simple question. He said, have you ever fallen, maybe fallen from a horse or had a car accident? And 10 years earlier, I'd actually fallen off a ladder. I fell 14 feet head first. I've got a raised eyebrow where I had 9 stitches. I had concussion, broke my nose, broke my wrist, and obviously had an impact through my spine. So the chiropractor took a look at that, and with 5 sessions, about 250 quid, I was fixed. And within a very short space of time, I was out there being able to run. I now run 10k probably twice a week, and I haven't had a back problem for 15 years. And I would have thought that, based on what the doctors were saying, very easily ended up in a wheelchair by the time I reached my 50s. So I'm very, very pleased with the outcome from that. With the undiagnosed food allergy, that turned out actually to be a dairy allergy. And obviously there's not much I can do other than avoid dairy, which is something that I've been doing now for years. And if I do have dairy, it will probably cause a nosebleed. And this is what was happening for me back in those days. At night time, I would wake up probably around sort of 5 in the morning with a nosebleed. And then as the symptoms got worse, that would happen at 3 o'clock and 1 o'clock. It'd take about 45 minutes to get back to sleep. So I was getting maybe sort of like 4 or 5 hours sleep each night. Which obviously then has an impact on the rest of your health, because then you will start eating badly because you start craving carbohydrates because you're tired. So actually being able to identify that I had a food allergy was really key, and just helped me to then remove that and then start to be able to sleep better again. And with the food allergy, I think it was probably something like 90-minute session. I think it probably costs something like 45 quid for the first session, probably a little bit more these days because this was about a decade ago. And then a couple of follow-up sessions, which were a lower price. It's sorted. And now when food is put in front of me, I can almost smell dairy. It immediately affects this side of my nose. It's like a cellular memory. So it's like, I've got some dairy in it. Do I or don't I have it? And sometimes I might have... very occasionally, if I'm out with the family or something like that, I might actually have some dairy if there's no other choice. But I do know that there will be a slight consequence for me with it, but I just don't allow the accumulation. So it's very rare that I'd actually eat it these days. I mean, so that's what got me thinking about health and wellness. And as you say, we were doing other things. We were working in other sort of niche areas. But I got very interested in health, and Jo was great at research, and she started to find the answers for me through the research, which led to an interest in health and well-being, which led to us running well-being groups, networking groups. I think we ran about 120 events over the course of about 4 years, and we got to know a lot of wellness providers and professionals, and we were doing things online. We were building websites for ourselves. We were doing video. We were putting on teleseminars and later webinars. We think we had about sort of 1,000, 2,500 people coming along to some of those events. And then people were saying to us, well, what are you doing? Who's doing all this for you? And we said, well, actually, we're doing it ourselves. And they said, well, could you help us with it? So that's how one of our businesses grew, because one of the businesses we run, Jo pretty much runs it today. With a small team, a business called Seven Figure Back Office, and they help other sort of people in wellness and also personal development to grow and scale their businesses. So, but as that business grew, it grew very, very quickly. I think between sort of 2013 and 2015, it just kind of exploded. And the problem for Jo and myself was everything ran through the two of us. Even though we had built a team, a very competent team, everybody wanted to talk to me and Jo, and we got to the point where we've got some very big clients, and we were just exhausted. I was actually suffering, I think, from chronic fatigue, although I didn't know that that's what it was at the time. Jo actually one day came out in hives on her arm because she was so stressed with everything. And so what we said was, if we were going to start this again and we were going to think about our health, what would we do? What would we do differently? And what we decided was we would use Jo's skills, because Jo's skills really are in tech. And my skills really in building relationships with people. So if I was to build relationships with people and Jo was to work on the tech, what kind of business around health and wellness and personal development would we create? And at that time, we were very aware, as well as I said earlier on, with sort of trust and transparency being the most important thing going forward, because we'd had what happened with the banks and people had lost trust in that. People have been losing trust with governments for decades. And obviously things moving more and more online, and people were asking, can I trust this information? It was a key thing to do, to be able to create a platform where people could see that rating and reviewing and see the experience that other people had had. So it's a long answer to your question of how I got started and how we got going with Total Wellness Club.
Well, it's typical though of a lot of people I interview, in that your backstory has led to what you do today, and it's so important to draw on the experience, personal experience of. So for yourself and your wife Jo, you've got a perfect combination, a perfect blend, haven't you? As you say, relationships for your side of things, and I know Jo. She's a lovely lady, and she's also very personable, but she also happens to have this wonderful gift of the IT stuff as well. So interesting that you say that it was a chiropractor and what sounds like a naturopath or a nutritionist that got you kind of fixed in the first place from when you were 21 stone going along. And that's exactly how I got interested as well in well-being over 25 years ago. Yeah. I'd always had back problems, and I was introduced to a chiropractor whose partner was a nutritionist. And I had my first, in fact, about 1998, something like that, give or take. And I had my first hair tissue mineral analysis, where we take, and I offer for clients today. I'd forgotten all about it, and then I just reintroduced myself to it. So you take a bit of your hair off the back, send that off to a laboratory, and you then have a mineral analysis, and it shows what the imbalances are, what the toxicity levels are. And for a lot of people, particularly my profile, we need to see, don't tell me stuff, I need to show, I need to be shown things. So I've introduced testing as a result of my experience, but the chiropractor thing, that was a chiropractors and osteopaths have kept me on the road, so to speak, for years. I really swear by them. Absolutely wonderful, because if your body is out of alignment in any shape or form, it affects the next bit and the next bit, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I actually went to see the osteopath, not actually for my it was actually for headaches. So the chiropractor initially, it was a friend of mine. I was really suffering from some splitting headaches, and a friend had actually said, you shouldn't be suffering from that. I've got a friend who could really help you with it. Go and see him. And I went along and saw him, and then he was asking those questions, and I told him about my back, and he said, well, look, literally what's happened is when your head hit the ground, your skull has shifted shape, and also as that's happened, there's been an impact all the way through your spine. And what we need to do is we need to very gently release all of that so that we can get back to where we were. So it took literally 5 sessions over about 5 weeks to do it, and just really have a look back. The funny thing about that, Elaine, was that I was out in the garden one day, and I just felt this little twinge, and it was probably about 10 weeks after I'd finished with the osteopath, and I thought, that's strange, I haven't had that for ages. My goodness, when was it I last actually had a back ache? And start thinking back, it's like, my God, it's weeks ago. It's weeks since I last had it, but I'd been having it literally every day. There was always a twinge, always having to work around it and be careful with it. So it's life changing, and I think this is why I do what I do, because I think so many people are suffering with a level of health that they think they're stuck with, like a back pain, or constant mucus, or something like that. It doesn't feel good for them. It doesn't feel nice to be in their body sometimes. And they don't need to be like that. I was just talking to a homeopath last year. I'm just actually doing like a 6 month trial with homeopathy. And one of the things that when I first was working with this lady, she said, what kind of conditions do you want to work? And I was like, I don't really have any conditions. I think I'm in pretty good health. But there's two things. I said, I've got, in the winter, my shins get itchy. And if I could get rid of that, that would be quite nice. But it's not a huge thing. And the other thing I said, sometimes in the evenings, maybe about 9-10 o'clock, I might feel like a little twitchy. Don't really know why, but if you could get rid of that as well, that'd be awesome. And she said, right, yeah, no problem, we can work on that. So been working with her, as I say, for quite a few months now, coming to the end of this sort of trial period that I'm doing. And I do this sort of thing because I like to review things. I just like to understand how they all work so that I can share that with other people. And what we've found, actually, the skin really starts sort of October, November usually, and it gets very, very itchy on my shins. And occasionally there's a little patch on my back where I'll get it later in the year, usually around February. Well, since I've been using the homeopathy on my back, that hasn't at all this year. And where it's usually very itchy around sort of my shins, and there's only one little patch. It's about the size of a 50p piece, which gets a bit itchy. But otherwise, that has gone for all intents and purposes. And with the twitches, then we were trying a remedy, and my energy completely crashed. And she said, well, let's give it a week and let's see if it starts to come back. And it didn't. She said, I think you might actually be suffering with fatigue. Can you just start taking it easy? We'll start sort of introducing these different sort of remedies. And it took about 6 weeks, and then my energy just like started coming back. You could feel energy for an hour, and then for a day, and then for days on end. It started getting stronger and stronger. Mm-hmm. And as that's happened, those twitches have actually started to subside. So again, it's a small thing, but it's one of those things that people who are suffering from dry or itchy skin or eczema, maybe they don't need to be doing that. And the very simple thing that I learned as well. Sorry, I've kind of really got into this now, Elaine. Something I learned from just exploring nutrition. I had a DNA test, and what they said in the DNA test was that my body struggles to deal with what do they call them, antioxidants. Struggles to get rid of the bad stuff out of my body. Mm-hmm. And what they said is you need to eat more cruciferous veg. Mm-hmm. And I was then at a talk over a couple of years ago. We were talking to about 500 school leaders about their health and wellness, and I had invited a nutritionist to come and join me. And as she was talking about cruciferous vegetables and how increasing cruciferous vegetables actually helps the body to get rid of the toxins so that it doesn't come out through the skin. And I was like, I wish I'd known that when I was a teenager. I could have got rid of all of that cruelty of name calling and everything else that goes with it. So just very simple things like that with things. There might be people listening to this that or people who have got young kids or grandkids that are at that school age and going through that kind of time where they're suffering from spots. But it's one of those things that I don't think people need to know if they are open to exploring their health and trying things. And you don't have to sort of go and spend a fortune at the chemist trying to get things that clear this up. Just change your diet.
It's so simple when but people don't know, and we're not educated, as you say, in this way. I've actually got my every morning I have this. I'm waving at the screen for the people who are on audio, video here. I drink live organic wheatgrass. And it comes to me in frozen sachets, and each sachet is just 1 ounce of very, very pure live organic wheatgrass that's juiced. Yeah. And that on its own, I know people who have reversed stage 4 cancer by just having that without doing any other changes to their diet. but the importance of detoxing is absolutely huge. And because we've got so much toxicity around us, you know, we have the chemtrails that, you know, showering upon us all kinds of horrible things. We've got the environment with the fuel and gas all around us. We've got plastics. We've got all kinds of things leaching, and we're absorbing. And of course, when people use personal body products, which are full of toxins and chemicals, we're bombarding ourselves with toxicity, and it's so important. So every day, apart from drinking the wheatgrass with other things I put in, I also take detox drops. And like you, I've tried and tested so many products, and I won't recommend products unless I've had personal experience myself. And obviously with my cancer backstories, I've tried lots and lots of different things. Homeopathy, absolutely brilliant. Chiropractic, naturopath, and all kinds of testing. But I'm very impressed at how you know your body, Neil, and I think that's really important to stress to listeners. You must learn to listen to your body, to understand it, be aware of it, because if not, then when you go to the doctors and you just get a pill for this and a lotion and potion or a powder for that, and all it does, it just moves things about. It doesn't cure anything, does it?
No, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, I think with a doctor, the way that I use a doctor is I'll go to a doctor to get a diagnosis. If the doctor wants to give me any kind of medication, I will immediately start asking questions, not so much of the doctor, because I know that his or her knowledge and experience is limited to medicine. And for me, I'm very much pro being proactive with your health and well-being, and doing it in a natural way, or as natural way as possible. So having got a diagnosis, I would then start to look at who I know who could help me with that particular problem. And you know, it might be a nutritionist, it might be a kinesiologist, it might be a chiropractor, it might be all of them, it might actually be a life coach of some description, because I will want to tackle this from every way possible until it's gone. You know, the medication for me would only ever be short term. I don't think I'm just trying to think of the last time I took any kind of medication other than a painkiller. You know, I had a tooth out a few years ago, and it was just horrible, and I ended up having to take painkillers, which was the first time probably I don't think I've actually had anything serious where I've needed to see a doctor since I've lived in Somerset. So that's going on 20 years. Because as you say, I've become aware of my body, become aware what's happening. You kind of like, you know, the signs. You know, the body just doesn't jump into crisis. There's something that's already been bubbling away, and you know, as a carer for this body, I need to be aware of what that is. You know, so you can then take kind of like the corrective action. You know, if you're not sleeping at night, well, there's probably a signal in there, and if you explore sleep, you'll find that there are different times of the night that you wake up depending on which organ of your body is struggling. Chinese medicine tells us that. So you know, when you start to up and explore these things, and you're working with professionals, point you in different directions, you know, other than just sort of medicine. You know, so that there's a whole range of things that are out there for people if they want to try these different things. I think the first thing, Elaine, for me, we work with the type of ones. We work with a framework which has got 3 components to it. And the first one is clarity. It's knowing what you want from your healthfulness and also your life as well. Because I think when you know where you want to go with your life, that kind of clarity and that purpose adds a new dimension for you. So we want to invite people to be really clear on what they want. And I guess that for most people, they would want to be in optimal health. They would be in the best condition that they could possibly be in. Like we said earlier on, you know, we're all different, so that would be different for everybody. You know that that's what you want, then the next thing to do is to be aware of where you are, and then you go on this journey of trying to get to that optimal health, and you'll find where you are and where you aren't in alignment with that, and then you just need to make adjustments and bring in new habits and get rid of habits that no longer support you. I mean, I'll be honest, you know, I like a drink occasionally. You know, I don't look at health and wellness, and I'm not kind of one of the health police. You know, I believe in being able to enjoy and live life, and very occasionally, you know, probably, you know, over the course of a week, I might drink 1 or 2 units of alcohol. Very, very minimal. And the way that I look at it is I want to get more right than I get wrong. And the other thing is, when I do drink alcohol, I drink like you just showed us your wheatgrass there a minute ago. I drink a lot of green juices as well, because I know that if I am going to go off track with something that is going to be acidic, like alcohol, I need to flood it with stuff that's alkalizing. And I think we need to use something like 20 times more alkalinity to 1 part acid. So, you know, if you think, you know, I'm drinking, let's say, a half pint of alcohol, I'm going to need to have like 10 pints of green stuff in order to be able to neutralize that. Of course, you can do that through diet as well, but and so it's not that you can't ever enjoy life, you know, when you want optimal health. It's actually you can still do some of these things that might be a little, let's say, naughty, but you need to know that there's a consequence unless you take care of that by doing some good things as well.
Absolutely. You mentioned the 3 parts, so clarity is one. What are the other 2 parts? So
awareness is the second part. So it's being aware of where you are on this journey towards your optimal health. And, you know, if you know that you, let's say you're, for me, like I was overweight, you know, being 20 stone, the first goal really was to try to get to about 3.5 stone, which was, for my height, is that level of no longer being obese. So that was my first goal, to get there. And the first thing I did was I started to exercise, but then I realized I had a plateau with exercise and I couldn't seem to lose any more weight. So the next thing I had to do was explore what else I could do, which then led me to look at my diet. So having created a habit around exercise, I now needed to create some new habits around diet. So awareness shows you where you're on track and where you're not on track, and then you build in these new habits, which is the third thing. And then the new habits can then guide you, because I think if you want to achieve any goal in life, you've got to have habits in place, because with habits you're always chipping away at the block. But without habits, it's just really left to randomness, really, and hope. So I think you've got to have a habit. If you've got a goal and you want to achieve it, you need habits in place in order to get there. So that's the third element. So clarity, awareness, and habits.
Cool. And it's very simple. So many people overcomplicate things, don't they?
Yeah, I think so with habits really for me is the thing. If you've got a habit, you know you've got a wall you're bouncing the ball against, almost. You know, you can see where you're going, you can see where you're at, and then you can go, is this actually working for me? I've done this for 6 months, but am I getting where I want to get to with this? And if the answer is no, then you need to tweak it and change something so that you can get there.
Absolutely, which goes back to awareness again, doesn't it, and clarity. So all of 3 of those, they're a good simple thing. Clarity, awareness, and habits. Fabulous. On the habit side of things, I tend to kind of extend that a bit further, because once you've embedded the habits then become a way of life. So a lot of people that I support through cancer and out the other side, they some of them go back to having, so we fix the cancer, they get better, and everything's wonderful, and then maybe 2, 3, 4 years later they come back and they go, oh well, you helped me last time, it's now recurred. And then I question them on what they've been doing, and they have dropped those habits, rather than they think that they can just do these things for a while, but they've not embedded the habits into a way of life. So the way I live, the way I, every morning I'm wearing rubber gloves to cut up and to grate turmeric and ginger. So I've also got another drink here. I've got a cafetiere. I've always got a cafetiere on the go. In there, I've got raw turmeric, raw ginger, and bay leaves. So that's the drink that I tend to have during the day as well. So, and I suppose you could say they're habits, but to me now it's a way of life. I do all these things and I try things out. So is there any particular top tips you'd like to recommend to listeners, Neil? Because the internet connection is not wonderful at the moment.
Yeah, sorry about that. Don't really know what we can do from my end on that. I've got everything turned off that can be turned off. I think just stay on the topic of habits. I think just for a moment longer, because we've got all kinds of different habits. You know, we've touched on sort of like the exercise habits. We've mentioned nutrition. You've talked about your green drinks. I mean, hydration, I think, is a key thing for us all. And we have another platform called Questly.life, and within Questly, it's 10 quests that you can go on that will help you to improve your health and well-being. And within it, in the nutrition section, we've got a calculator in there which helps you to work out how much water you need to drink each day based on your body mass. And one of the things, when you know that, and you realize, you know, for most people, it's going to be somewhere between 1,800 ml and probably 2,600, or maybe even another litre if you exercise a lot as well. When you realize you could be drinking anything from 1,800 up to 3,500, 3,500 litres a day, so 3,500 ml a day. When you realize that that's what you then know that you're going to need a habit for this, because you're not just going to go, well, I need to drink my 3.5 litres and sort of do it in one go. You have to spread that across the day. So one of my habits is that I drink water first thing in the morning, because if you imagine you've had literally sort of 8 to 12 hours of being of dehydrating. So first thing in the morning, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start drinking water. I also drink a green drink, like you've talked about. Mine's got wheatgrass in it. It's got spirulina in it. It's got some barley grass in it as well. It's got some maca in it. I also have some hemp in there because I do a lot of exercise. I do enjoy exercise, and hemp actually helps with the recovery from that. So I have my own sort of drink that I make up, which is all green powders apart from the maca, which is a slightly kind of whitey kind of powder. But that's all there to help alkalize my body, because even exercising can cause acidity. So I drink that. That's one of my first drinks in the morning. And then I'll drink steadily throughout the day. So I'll have another drink cup, quite a big mug, this one, sent to me by one of my clients. So I drink that at sort of 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1:30, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then the last one about 8:30 in the evening. And if I'm exercising for an hour, I will drink of water as well. So I've got a schedule for it. You see, now I don't need to think about it. And this is the thing with habits. It's not optional. I do it because I know that I have to do it. So in order to be in really good health. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to say really, Elaine. It's I think in terms of one habit that everyone could maybe take away from what I've spoken about today, is making sure you're drinking enough, because at least that way you're flushing toxins out of your body. You're helping your body, helping your kidneys, you know, to flush out anything that's negative in your body, and giving your body half a chance really to stay in really good health.
Absolutely, great advice, Neil. And that's reminded me, that's why I initially consulted a chiropractor, because I had a kidney problem which was getting worse. It wasn't diagnosed till I was early 20s, and it turned out I was born with this kidney disease. And because I was a competitive swimmer, I used to get constant waterwork infections, and it was put down to the chlorine in the water and washing powders and one thing and another. But when I finally got the diagnosis, I had private health insurance, and I was under Harley Street specialist. I'm going back now to the early 1980s, and they put me on antibiotics and said that I would be on them for life. So 23 years later, I was introduced to the chiropractor because I had a back problem. And I said, well, can we look at the kidney area as well? And where my back problem was worst was that which affected the nerves to my kidney and bladder. So everything got fixed up, and I'm going back over 20 years now, as I mentioned. So, and I've not taken any medication for that for years and years and years. And I was told by the medics that I'd be on them for life. And I'm convinced that the long-term antibiotics is part of the reason I had the various different cancer experiences. So everything is linked. Everything is linked.
body is amazing like this. You know, you're saying that you've got a back problem. Sounds like it's structural. You go and see a chiropractor, and the chiropractor says, "What about the kidneys?" And then, so this is amazing. I mean, I the interviews that I do with health and wellness experts, I see this when I ask them, you know, have you got a story that you can share with me? Often we find that there are funny little, well, not funny, but you know what I mean, ironic links in terms of what the body is actually showing and telling you. You've had people who have had sort of like back problems, you know, and as actually there's been a cancer that they needed to have sorted out, and they didn't even know, but it first showed up as a back problem. And so it's the body is very, very intelligent in terms of what it shows us. And if we're aware, and if we're listening, and if we're watching, and we start going asking questions, yeah, GP is one resource, but also always be aware that there are, like you've said, a chiropractor that you can go to. There are nutritionists, and because our gut health is so important, you know, to our well-being, you know, and just explore. You know, if you've got any health problem at all, just go and explore it. That'd be something I would say to people.
Absolutely, and listen to your body, take notice of it, because if you're in pain, there's a reason you're in pain. So don't just take a tablet, painkiller, find out why you're in pain. And there's so many misinformation about when I had my big E cancer, my stage 4 cancer in 2015. I was constantly told that my pH level was not high enough, and I was too acidic. Well, actually, that was a load of tosh. Because people say, oh, you've got to be 7, you've got to be 7.365. That is the pH level of blood. But you need to measure your urine saliva. You need to measure your saliva pH and the urine pH. And then the measurements of those, there's a calculation. And the measurement of that will tell you how your body is in balance. It's all about balance. And the acid-alkali balance is really, really important. What we eat is part of it, but it's not the be-all and end-all. There's lots of internal things that go on, and that's why I introduced the testing that I now do with the blood analysis and the hair tissue analysis. But it's a fascinating subject, the body, and I think if I had my time again, I would learn sooner a bit more about the body than it's taken me all these years.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because you know it's something that carries us through life, isn't it? And if we do damage to it, we're actually damaging ourselves. And if we knew how to not do that from an earlier age, that would be so much more beneficial for us. In talking about different tests, this is one of the areas that I really love to review products and services on, Elaine. At the moment, one that I'm just testing is actually a urine test. To check different levels in the body, function, liver function, pH balance, and a few other things. And these are things that people can do at home. You know, blood is obviously different. You know, you need some help and support with that to get it taken and to understand it. But you know, again, saliva is something that we can test at home. It's quite easy and straightforward to do. So yeah, I enjoy reviewing these to see how they can impact people, but not just for me. I like to try and involve my family and friends sometimes as well in the review, because if I'm reviewing a product like let's say this urine test, I'm only going to get a certain set of results that might fluctuate a little bit from week to week. But if I involve say my dad and Joe, or a friend or someone in some way, and say, look, could you do this too? We can then look at different results, and then we've got different things that we can talk about and discuss. And sometimes we will interview the founder from a company as well, and we'll also interview them about what those results mean, so we can get another perspective on that as well. So I do like going in depth with things when we look at them, because like you, I'm fascinated by everything sort of health-wise.
Marvellous, absolutely marvellous. So remind listeners where they, actually before we do that, for anybody who is interested about checking your saliva and your urine, all you simply do is buy plastic strips off the internet or the local health store. Don't buy the tape ones, because they're not terribly accurate. You can buy some round tape, but it's like porous tape, which is not terribly effective. But the plastic strips. So you just put your the instructions are on the bottle, but when you test your urine and your saliva, you can just put the result on the plastic tab thing on the bottle, and that gives you a colour, and that gives you what your readings are. And your saliva should be between 6.5 and 7 pH reading, and your urine should be between 5.5 and 6. So if anybody's listening, so I am constantly 5.5 urine pH, and for people, even cancer specialists were telling me, oh, you should be 7, you should be 7. Nonsense. Anyway, there we go. So thought I'd add that in. So Neil, remind listeners how they can get hold of you and Joe.
Yeah, so we're on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page, Total Wellness Club, and so you can find us on there. On our website, we have a chat function. So if there's anything that anyone wants to ask about, come and use that. So that's at totalwellness.club. And we're also on YouTube as well. So I mean, anyone who wants to sort of like follow my journey and the things that I'm exploring with health and wellness, whether it's an interview with an expert or a review of a product, or even sometimes I'll throw in my own experiences and what I'm going through. Recently I was interested in looking for vegan burgers, because I find it often when I try and cook something like that at home, they just fall to pieces. And the shop bought ones weren't very tasty. So I just went and tried cooking 8 different burgers, and I tried some of the shop bought ones, and we kind of evaluated them all from a new point of view. We looked at the sustainability point of view. We looked at taste and texture and holding everything together. I got one of my mates involved who's a chef as well. And we actually found a couple of burgers that we were really pleased with at the end. So we love exploring things like that. So if people are in that kind of thing and they want to come and join us, come and find us over on YouTube. Again, it's Total Wellness Club on YouTube.
Marvellous, thank you very much. And of course, you can very welcome to post things in my Facebook group for the length of time it stays there. I'm going to be going off the platform soon. I'm sick to death with all the censoring, but the Perfect Health Wellness Club, while it's there on Facebook, very welcome to share your stuff in there, Neil.
Thank you.
Lovely to spend time with you today. Thank you.
Elaine, nice to be here.